Okay, let's kick this off. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. This is the Beeswax 2022 Strategic Roadmap Overview. My name is Greg Endean. I'm the Commercial Director for Northern Europe and UK, which effectively means I'm responsible for new and existing revenue streams across the business. Before we kick off and I let my colleagues introduce themselves, there's a couple of housekeeping points. The first is that this is recorded and it will be available on the website afterwards. So if any of your colleagues can't make it, don't stress, just be sure to let them know there is a recording available. And the second point is that at the end of the session or towards the end of the session, there will be a Q&A available. So please do submit your questions. You can do so anonymously. If you are brave, then please do leave your details. And if you want to make sure that we come back to you if we don't get a chance to get to them in the session, then of course just leave your name and we'll tie it back. I'll hand over to my colleagues to introduce themselves now.
Thank you, Greg. And hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I am Audrey Boisumeau, and I run the commercial activity in the southern region.
And hi, everybody. My name is Curt Younker, and I lead the product management team at Beeswax.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Okay, so the session we have lined up for you today is as follows. Audrey is going to kick off by looking at some of the flagship releases that we had across 2021. And then Curt is going to take the main body of content that we have today, which is super exciting. It's a 2022 strategic roadmap. Going to look at everything that we're hoping to focus on over the next year. And then finally, we're gonna wrap up with a fireside chat with Audrey and I, and asking some key questions into Curt that you guys have posed. So please don't be shy. Do add some questions. Hit the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen. Okay, Audrey, over to you.
Thank you. So before we dive in 2022, we wanted to put 2021 in retrospective. And some of you know, it has been a very exciting year for Beeswax. First of all, we have been acquired by FreeWheel. So we are now part of the Comcast family, which has brought obviously a lot of opportunities in terms of projects. Beeswax was also rated visionary by Gartner, which means that it's without saying that there is no vision without the work of our talented product team. As most of you are familiar with Beeswax, we have a very specific approach when it comes to programmatic buying. We're all about enabling the best functionalities for our customers to allow them to achieve the performance that they really care about. So from analytics to custom optimization, we have continuously put all our efforts and resources in helping our customers to gain more transparency and control over their media buying. So let's have a look at what we've achieved in 2021. We can start with bid shading, which, as a reminder, is the ability to use a probabilistic graph to reduce your bid in order to save media costs. We have actually launched this feature in 2020, but Beeswax was a pioneer in the bid shading technology by providing control over how aggressively the algorithm can be operated. So it has enabled basically our customer to manage the trade-off between delivery and cost saving. And after launching it, we found that adopters have on average saw a bid reduction of 25%. So one of our great success here. Then we've launched an analytic feature called Bid Decision Flow. So it's the visualization of the bid decision process, and it shows how bids are evaluated. So we all know programmatic campaigns can be quite challenging when it comes to granular targeting, and the Bid Decision Flow provides granular insights for traders during troubleshooting. The idea is to understand, what am I not bidding, or what am I not winning? Is it because of frequency cap, pacing, targeting, creative match, etc.? This tool is displayed as a graph in the UI and give a precise diagnostic over the bid decision. Then we have modifier V2. So bid modifiers is one of our core products. It's a functionality in the UI that allows our customer to attribute a multiplier to their bid and control the price depending on RTB parameters. If you value more, for example, an impression coming from New York, then you can add a multiplier against that metric. And in the version 2, we have increased the flexibility of the product by supporting segment recency. So you can now adapt your bid price not only on general parameters, but also on users. So it provides a huge amount of control over how single line items delivers. And lastly, I wanted to talk about availability forecasting. We have added a tab in our UI providing greater insights into campaign delivery. It's a pure forecasting tool helping our customer in their media planning. And it takes in consideration all targeting that you can apply to your line item. So once you have set up your campaign and your line items, apply the targeting that you need, even your segment, you are now able to have a clear overview of the inventory available, either on a daily or on a lifetime basis. And you can really understand basically what you can deliver and help your planning team and your sales team. So you do understand we're all about making life easier for planners here, but enough of 2021. Let's dive in what we have in store for 2022. Curt, over to you.
Awesome, great. Thank you so much, Audrey and Greg. And thank you also everyone for joining. Greg, you can, or Albert who's driving, hop to the next slide, please. So before we even really look at the roadmap for 2022, I wanted to take a moment and just kind of give an overview of the strategic themes that are driving this roadmap. We spent quite a bit of time coming into this year. Part of the acquisition is FreeWheel, but part of just our annual strategy meeting to figure out really what do we want to focus on over the course of the year. And we came up with a number of themes, the first of which is CTV, audience, and identity. And I think if you're dialed into this webinar, you probably already understand that the IG space in CTV is very fragmented. So it's actually difficult for buyers to do basic things like planning, targeting, frequency capping, and measuring even their CTV buys at scale. So we're working on a number of initiatives and partnerships this year to really strengthen our audience and identity solutions. And I'll walk through some of those, but that's going to be a pillar for us. The next is we're calling enhanced CTV buying. And independent of sort of the user data and identity part of it, CTV is just like the Wild West right now. We want to make it as easy as possible for customers to discover and target and buy their audiences in these environments. But there are a lot of challenges, especially in the space of attribution and optimization. So in this space, we're doing a number of things this year. One is we are going to support contextual targeting in CTV, first through a partnership with ComScore, but then we're looking at other partnerships later in the year with other vendors as well. We'll be able to talk about those once they've matured a little bit. We are looking to support Nielsen DAR measurement. In the space of attribution, we want to release a ghost bidding feature. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. And we're also integrating with Human to support pre and post bid fraud solutions. So those are kind of the headline items, but there's a lot of things going on in the space of sort of taming CTV for our buyers. The next pillar is, it says here, agency workflow enhancements. What this really means for us is that Beeswax is investing a lot in really fundamentally rebuilding our user interfaces. Not only the UI that our users log into every day, but also the APIs that our media customers and more technologically advanced customers use to orchestrate our system. So there's going to be a series of releases throughout the year related to this, and I'll speak a little bit more, but there's a lot of interesting stuff coming from a user experience perspective. And then lastly, inventory and deal access is a major focus of what we're doing. So it's hard to talk about connected TV or premium video without also thinking about having access to deals, as well as just the scarcity of that premium inventory. So we're looking at offering a few different tools to make it easier for our buyers to actually secure and purchase this. And there's a lot more to say there, which we'll go into in a few minutes. So with that, next slide, please. Great, thank you. So this is a kind of a top level view of our roadmap. And these are kind of like the biggest, meatiest items we have. There's a long tail of small features that we'll be releasing every month. Some are more interesting to some customer segments, less interesting to others. But the items I've flagged here, we think are sort of the flagship features for the year. I'm not going to have time to talk about all of these in detail. So on this slide, I did want to just linger for a moment on two that are worth mentioning, but I won't speak too long about. One is delivery forecasting. So Audrey mentioned a few minutes ago, last year we invested a lot in availability forecasting. Availability forecasting lets you define some targeting, and it says, here's how many avails or impressions or you might expect, or how many auctions you would expect. Delivery forecasting is sort of an advancement on that feature that lets you say, based on what I'm targeting and also my CPM and also my frequency cap and also my bidding strategy, how will I actually deliver? You could have 1 million auctions available, but if your CPM is too low, you might not win any. So this is really a pretty big enhancement in our forecasting abilities. And it's been a huge project for our data platform and optimization teams. So I would be remiss if I didn't call that out. I also want to note, again, the workflow enhancements that we're doing. They're not listed on this particular slide, but every couple of months, we're going to have big changes hitting. And by big changes, I mean, we're revamping all of the objects in our system, like advertisers, campaigns, the line item workflow, all of our list views and navigation pages. And this is going to continue into next year, but I just want to call it, those aren't listed here, but our users will see a lot of those improvements as well. Cool. So I guess at this point, I'm going to start talking about a couple of features in a little more detail. I do want to remind you guys that the Q&A button does exist. So feel free to make use of that as we're walking through this. So one of the things that is really sort of interesting for us this year that I wanted to talk about is what we're calling a curated deal library. So FreeWheel and other exchanges regularly publish these always on deals that represent content packages buyers can purchase. So for FreeWheel, these might be things like Winter Olympics content or news or travel content. And you could imagine other exchanges having different deals for, maybe Spanish language content or horror, or some deals hard to do with KPIs like high click-through rates or high view-through rates. And in any event, these deals are often actually sent around as just like PDF documents with lists of deal IDs and descriptions. And it's up to the buyer to physically take the PDF, copy and paste the deal ID into their DSP system, create a deal, and then target it. And it's quite a complicated, convoluted process operationally. And we just want to make it easier, frankly, to discover and buy these always on deals. So we're starting with the deals that FreeWheel's marketplace publishes. And the goal here is really just to put them in the UI in front of people, along with the other types of deals that our customers use, the ones they've negotiated themselves, for example. And that's actually underway now. And we hope to release this in May. So you'll see a little GA sticker here. The August release is to do with other exchanges. So we want to do FreeWheel first because it's in-house. It's easy for us to set up and sort of prove the concept. But we're discussing with other exchanges. I can't, I guess, mention any names right now, but there are a few major ones, and they're the sort of like large sort of video providers that you would expect. And we're hoping to integrate a few of their deals as well later this year. So that's what I have to say about deals. We can, move on to ghost bidding. Perfect. So ghost bidding is a super cool project. For those of you who aren't familiar with the term, the basic question that ghost bidding is trying to answer is, what effect is my advertising actually having on conversions? So said another way, the user wants to know, if you spend so much money on advertising, does it actually deliver better results? So like, are people going to your brand's landing page more often after they see your ad? This is kind of the age-old question in advertising, right? And one way to answer this is to just do a standard A/B test, right? This is the tried and true method where you split the world into two groups. One group sees your ad, the other sees like a public service announcement. And then at the end of the day, you look at the two groups and you see, is there a difference in how they visited my landing page or took whatever action your advertising was meant to have? The problem with this is that running A/B tests are expensive because you actually have to spend the money for the PSAs. And also it's operationally burdensome and difficult to do and organize. And to do it really well, you kind of need actual scientists or, people with, some expertise to like actually get good results. And so the industry over, a period of years has really iterated on a different, number of solutions to this, and ghost bidding is sort of emerged as the standard of excellence solution. So how does it work? Basically, with our ghost bidding solution, Beeswax is going to still split the world into two groups of test and control. And for the control group, we show ads like normal. But for the test group, we simulate what would have happened if we had bid on that user. So we're not actually showing a PSA ad, but we're saying, if I had bid a $17 CPM, would I have won this auction? And we log that as a ghost bid. And later, when we see conversion events, so people actually visiting brands' landing page, we can look at our real ad logs and our ghost bid logs that simulated what would have happened if we had bid, and we can measure attribution this way. So that whole process might sound convoluted, and it is a little bit convoluted, but the result is actually a very effective, efficient way to measure the uplift of advertising. And you can do it without all of the operational and financial burden of running A/B tests. So it's super scalable. And frankly, ghost bidding, it comes up all the time as a request from our biggest customers, and it comes up on sales calls regularly. So this is kind of just a hot topic, I think, in the industry right now. You will notice there's a pilot sticker here in March. This is sort of a limited solution that we're testing with a couple of customers. It's sort of based on log files, but we're building toward a fully featured solution with full predictive simulation capabilities in June. And our optimization team is working hard on that. So that's a cool one, but you expect more to hear more about ghost bidding. And next slide, please. Cool. So this next topic then is called FreeWheel Advanced Marketplace Access. And this represents an effort actually that's been underway for a few months and is going into a closed beta with select customers over the next couple of weeks. And the purpose of the FreeWheel Advanced Marketplace deals is to make it easy for Beeswax customers to create their own customized deals on premium video inventory. So what does this mean? Today, if you are a buyer and you want to negotiate a deal with a publisher, you generally have to call them up and say something like, I want to buy Spanish language content. Here are my flight dates. This is the bid floor that I'm looking for, and et cetera. This whole process is very operationally cumbersome. It's time consuming. And honestly, smaller agencies that don't have massive checkbooks have trouble getting in the door with a lot of like larger publishers. So this is kind of an obstacle to a lot of demand, actually. There's a long tail of small people who would like to buy, but don't have millions and millions of dollars to spend. So with FreeWheel Advanced Marketplace deals, buyers are going to be able to go into our UI and actually create these customized deals with basically full control over targeting. You can pick your DMAs, you can pick multiple publishers that you would like to target. You can set frequency caps, you can target different device types and environments, most of the stuff that you are accustomed to in just normal RTB buying. but the thing is, you're creating these deals that are then directly integrated with the FreeWheel marketplace. So the premium video supply, that FreeWheel represents and that's feeding into that marketplace is going to be what is sort of like supplied against these deals. So we think that this is basically going to be great for a lot of our agency and video buying customers because, as part of FreeWheel, we are directly next to the ad decisioning brain, for the sell side of the industry. And we want to take advantage of that proximity to inventory and, let our customers, really gain the advantage from it. Awesome. So on this slide, before I say anything, I have to admit I've cheated. Talking about expanding our ID-enabled CTV inventory, you'll see that GA here came out early in March or late in February. This is not strictly a roadmap slide. This feature just came out and can be enjoyed now. But I did want to add it because it, is a pretty meaningful thing for us this year. Basically, the idea here is, I mentioned, walled gardens have fragmented, CTV identity space. We've updated pretty significantly our tap ad and live ramp device graphs to increase their reach over CTV by, depends how you count, 50 to 75%, which actually ends up meaning like tens and tens of millions of devices and households that we can now account for with these cross-device solutions. So this is pretty massive actually for us, and just for our ability to do, again, things like frequency capping, cross-device attribution, and just have a sense of what's happening in the TV space, CTV space. I can't leave this slide without also saying there's some other really interesting work that we're doing this year, which is to say we're unifying Beeswax's internal user data and identity solutions with the rest of FreeWheel's stack. So what this means is that Beeswax customers are going to be plugged in seamlessly to the same data and identity layer that's powering FreeWheel's marketplace and sell-side solutions. So there's a huge advantage for basically using these tools through Beeswax. We're part of a much bigger ecosystem now, and this is a massive point of synergy for us. So that's exciting. But you can hop on now to the next slide. Thank you. Excellent. And then, so yeah, I wanted to also just talk a bit about the data partnerships that we're expanding. So I can say that, a couple of years ago, when Beeswax saw laws like GDPR and CCPA coming into place, we knew that there was not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution to any sort of identity problems in the industry. And instead, so we've taken the approach of trying to really just solve individual customer challenges one at a time, and to provide tools that, just help our customers like make sense of this space and actually conduct their business. So to that end, one of the first things that we're doing this year is adding a couple of new DMP integrations. So customers can onboard their own first-party data. One of these is Throttle, the other is Newstar. Newstar in particular is important. We heard from a number of our European customers. And so we think this represents a pretty good step in our, sort of identity and audience general capabilities in the EU. We are also planning to support Nielsen DAR measurement. This is important for us because linear TV buyers are accustomed to receiving Nielsen measurement, demographic measurement. And we hope that this will basically make it easier for some TV budgets to be loosened up and spent on digital video, just because, again, operationally, the metrics and reporting will be comparable to what people are already seeing. And with this, you'll be able to tag Nielsen campaigns directly in Beeswax. So it should just totally streamline the workflow. And the Nielsen project is super interesting as well. Looking toward the future, beyond just measurement and beyond this year, we're also working pretty closely with the data science experts at FreeWheel to plan a second phase where we actually hope to steer impression delivery to maximize in-demo delivery, basically, as measured by Nielsen. So that's much more of an R&D project right now, but it's pretty interesting for us. And then lastly, I just want to say exactly what it says on the tin. We're expanding LiveRamp and Data Store internationally. So I mentioned, TapAd and LiveRamp CTV graph coverage expanded quite a bit about a month ago. Later in the year, we want to take all of this work we're doing and make it available also outside of the United States. So European customers will be able to enjoy LiveRamp support as well. Anyway, I want to pause there. I've been talking for a while, and so I'll again thank everyone for your time and attention. This is like basically the core of what I wanted to talk about for our roadmap. And so here I'm gonna stop and actually turn it back to our hosts, Greg and Audrey. But thanks for listening.
Thanks very much, Curt. That was awesome. Really great to hear about what's coming up and what's come before. So thanks again. And you're not off the hook yet, I'm afraid, because we have a bunch of questions to get through. So thanks everyone for submitting your questions. Okay, so we're gonna kick off. Curt, I have one for you. How do you balance global versus US focused capabilities with regards to the roadmap?
This is great. Okay. So I get some version of this question pretty regularly, often from our, commercial and sales colleagues in Europe. And I understand where the question comes from, but I think that this idea we need to balance between our US and EU roadmaps is kind of based on the false assumption that they're in some sort of competition, or that if we're building features for one, it means we're not building valuable features for the other continent. I think the truth of the matter is Europe has been, strategically critical to Beeswax for a number of years, like pre-acquisition, and we've done a good job of building a business there. But Europe is also super critical to FreeWheel more broadly. And so I think at every level of the organization, there is like deep incentivization to like have a strong, meaningful business in Europe. And this is all to say, like, when we build our roadmaps, we try to prioritize features that have wide applicability. So things like I mentioned, delivery forecasting, ghost bidding, the deal library. I could go on. Most things are meant, to support customers on either side of the ocean. And I guess that all being said, just to round out the answer, I would be amiss to not mention that there are a couple of differences. First, like we can say out loud, Comcast Cable has like a US footprint. They own FreeWheel and Beeswax. And so, yeah, when we are building features that, take advantage of that cable footprint, or, the identity footprint that Comcast understands, that might be US centric just because of the nature of the business. But in my mind, like, we're also learning, we're doing R&D, we're proving concepts that could, in principle, be expanded internationally. Which leads me to the second big difference is that there is like a difference of regulatory environment, not just between like the US and the EU, but even across different countries, inside of Europe. The standards for how broadcasters or publishers or DSPs need to behave, frankly, it varies. And so it's harder to bring scaled solutions, especially from like a kind of a TV linear infrastructure perspective. It's just harder to bring those to market, but it's something that we do pay a lot of attention to.
Okay.
So that's my round way of saying that we think we can have our cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So next one. How will Beeswax priorities continue to shift now that you're part of FreeWheel?
Interesting. So I'll say I don't think Beeswax priorities have shifted very dramatically at all since joining FreeWheel, and I don't expect them to change very much. Beeswax has been focused on bringing a great programmatic buying experience to our customers, and that's not going to change at all. I think if anything, we'll be focused on really leveraging the opportunities that FreeWheel brings us. It is important, I'll reiterate, to understand now Beeswax, our tech stack sits next to MRM, which is like the ad decisioning brain for premium video. Obviously, we want to leverage that proximity. We want to make it easy for our customers to buy into the premium video, the inventory space. That's all good for our customers. It's good for Beeswax. It's good for FreeWheel. Everybody wins. I'll reiterate, like, bringing capabilities that really like differentiate us in video and support FreeWheel inventory aren't necessarily exclusive from the bread and butter of what we've always done for display or native or other types of formats we support. And again, I'll just point to the forecasting, ghost bidding solutions. So many of the heavy major things that we're invested in are meant to serve customers across the board.
Okay, just scrolling through the questions here. This one seems quite juicy. What are some of the other trends that you see in market that you think are going to impact the roadmap?
So I like that product people often get asked this as if we have, some sort of special insight. I'm afraid to say that I think the trends I see in market are probably the same trends that we read about in Ad Exchanger, every week or whatever. They're straightforward. The proliferation of CTV traffic continues to grow. And from the perspective of technology and industry standards, I'll say again, it's a little bit like the Wild West. And so we're working on features to tame that space so that our customers can like run their businesses effectively. Transparency in media comes up all of the time. Buyers demand it. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us as part of FreeWheel to continue to bring transparency up and down the buying stack, all the way from distributors and publishers through the marketplace to the buying seats that Beeswax represents. There's no reason that can't be like crystal clear. And I think we've done a great job already. Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. I thought you finished. I was going to add a note for Europe, but please finish.
Oh, just to wrap up then, I guess, the transparency is really just part of bringing buyers and sellers closer together to just have like a frictionless market. And that's what FreeWheel holistically wants to do. Beeswax clearly sits on like one side of that marketplace and, we'll represent our buyers well, but, understanding just part of the bigger picture, like we're here for our customers and also for the ecosystem at this point. So I think that needs to be clear as well. But go ahead, Audrey.
Yeah, I really like the explanation on kind of the complementarity between the two tech as well. I think that's a very good point. I was just going to add that I think, Curt, you mentioned it a little bit, that in Europe, the market is a lot more fragmented, obviously. And the programmatic approach can be very different from a country or even a region to another. And as you said, this is due to different practice, maturity, and regulation is a huge one. So when I'm thinking, for example, about the RPP regulation for TV in France and in the Clearcast in the UK, for example. So there is obviously a lot of topics in the CTV and linear space, and they're different in each region. But we can also see a lot more and more data scientists joining companies, which shows a real appetite as well for understanding what really happens behind each transaction. So I think that we're really moving toward that really strong appetite for transparency and control. We're not going to debate here the cookie going away. I think it's done and done and done, but it's clear that there is a lot of initiative towards this as well.
Awesome, thanks guys. And all right, what's next? So what are some of the releases you're most excited about that you think will have a global impact? Curt, I'll see you.
Yeah. So I think the one I'm most excited about, the releases I'm most excited about are definitely in the space of the sort of workflow improvements we're making. Again, just speaking as a product person, rebuilding our platform's UI and APIs, and we're not just reskinning them. We're like changing these workflows from the design, from the ground up. We're adding new functionality. So from design to engineering, all of this is just like super good, juicy development work, and the team has had a lot of fun with it, and people are like feeling good. We've also been getting good feedback on the releases we've had so far. So I think this is just like, we've got a lot of wind in our sails, and it's a great project for a big team, and it's just a lot of fun. So all of our customers are going to benefit from this. I'm super excited about it.
Awesome. And Audrey, one for you. Actually, two questions for you here. We might as well tie them together because they're relatively similar. One, talk to us about Beeswax approach for in-housing, and if you could also touch on the approach for Beeswax with regards to media agencies, that would be really cool.
Sure. I think we need to first understand the motivation behind in-housing the programmatic buying. I think for a long time, the industry has operated their media buying with a huge lack of visibility on costs, on bidding strategy, but also without a real differentiation in the algorithm. And that's been the case for a long time when using black box DSP models. So I think no one wants to use the same strategy than their competitors. And it was happening for a long time using the same algorithm in traditional DSP. So I think this is where Beeswax can provide an alternative. As some of you know, we can deploy one bidder per client, so you have your own space that you can fully customize. We can decide what inventory we want to receive. You can decide if you wish to use our tool to build your own algorithm. You can as well gain full transparency by receiving logs. And you can even incorporate your own data into the ecosystem safely. So I think this is the real value proposition is Beeswax can provide all those possibilities without having to build your own bidder. We do basically all the heavy lifting. And I think somehow it's the same for agencies. They are more and more challenged by their client on those transparency and control topics. Advertisers understand now the value of SPO. They understand the value of custom optimization, and it's the role of the agency to bring that on the table for their clients. So yeah, I think this is the two key the two key area when we're going to make a true difference.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll stay with you for the next one. Will the 5% seat fee, the media seat fee that we apply, if a customer has a direct billing seat, does a seat fee still apply, is the question?
Sure. So Gabe, welcome to the webinar. I think this is a question that you should take with your customer success manager. I'm not sure if you're in the US or in Europe and if you are a customer or prospect, but to answer your question very briefly, there is a moderate fee that is planned when you use your own billing seats, but this is a question that you should ask your contact at Beeswax.
Okay, thanks very much. Curt, here's one for you. So regarding delivery forecasting, will the feature be available in the API, or is it just a UI-based function?
Great question. This comes up a lot. Right now, this is a solely UI-based function. The reason we built it that way is because when we actually do these sort of forecasts, it can take a little while. And our APIs, long story short, have like a 30-second timeout window just to protect our own systems. And it wasn't always the case that we could be certain we would, have a forecast in that period of time. However, some of the work that we've been doing to go from availability forecasting to this delivery forecasting basically involves like rebuilding the guts of it. And we're doing our modeling and our predictions in a different way now, which is much quicker. And I think there is opportunity now from just like a technology infrastructure perspective to actually expose this through a UI. That all being said, it's certainly going to be UI to start. And we don't have concrete plans to build API functionality. But if that's a use case that's important, we can absolutely follow up on it. It should be possible.
Okay. And we've had a bunch of questions around ghost bidding. So Curt, if you don't mind taking some of these. So similar to the last question, how is ghost bidding going to present itself? Will it be an interface-driven solution, or is it going to be log-based? How will that work?
Yeah, so this is a great question. there are kind of two parts, I guess, the way I think about it. One is just how do you turn it on? Like how do I enable ghost bidding? And then once I've done that, what do I see or what do I get out of the system afterward? So we've designed it to be as simple as humanly possible to enable. Basically, at a line item level, there's going to be a checkbox that says, do you want ghost bidding to be enabled? And at least for the first version, you'll just check a box and then we will enable ghost bidding on this line item for you. You don't need to worry about any of the mechanics. And then what we will ultimately give back to you is a sort of an attribution report of, for your, I'll say, control group that saw ads and your test group that we simulated, the predictions for. What is the difference in actual conversions? The way that is going to be expressed is kind of an open design question. It might be through our existing reporting interface. It might be like a new chart or something in the UI. That hasn't really been resolved, but it'll be relatively straightforward, whatever the actual medium is.
Okay, a couple more on ghost bidding, if you don't mind. A question that we've had in the chat. So how is ghost bidding prediction quality calibrated? Is there going to be any transparency around that? In any case, awesome innovation. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, awesome, cool. So I'm going to give you my kind of some semi-surface level understanding as a PM, but if you really want to dig in and actually talk to our data science team, there's opportunity to really go deep on this. Basically, the way we're going to predict these simulations is probably by using training like a neural net. Most of our ML products these days are built on the back of TensorFlow. And so the expectation is we will train a model to predict, would you have won this auction based on your CPM and so forth. This is similar to how we do forecasting as well. And as we train the model, we actually get data through that process. So we can quantify its accuracy, its precision, some different metrics around how it actually performs against real data in the world. We don't have, or we haven't made concrete plans to expose those numbers. But I absolutely understand why that'd be interesting, especially for the sake of transparency and having insight into what our tools are doing. So that's all to say, we'll have training data, and if you want it, just ask. We'll find a way to get it to you.
Is there an expectation there's an additional CPM to enable ghost bidding, or is it too early to say?
Oh, good question. Right now, there is not an expectation that there will be an additional CPM associated with ghost bidding.
Okay. Let's move on. We've had quite a few questions around TV, connected TV. So I'll dig into a couple of those. Okay, so firstly, when you use the term TV, do you mean IPTV/smart TV, or are you mean also touching on traditional cable?
Got it. Yes, great question, and sorry for the ambiguity. For the whole of this presentation and this talk, I try to mean IP-enabled digital TV, smart TVs, things coming in through a Roku box, perhaps. And when I try to say linear TV when referring to the sort of old school cable, the TV your grandma watches and she sees the same ads as your neighbor generally. So I've meant digital TV.
Okay. And then some of the features and functionality that you've spoken about regarding CTV, there seems to be interest for that to also be available across LATAM. Is it too early to say whether that's going to be the case, or do you envisage that the roadmap plans that we have are going to be globally available?
So generally, everything I've spoken about will be globally available, with just a couple of exceptions that I think I've probably highlighted, but I'll just reiterate. One is the FreeWheel Advanced Marketplace Deals functionality. Actually, excuse me, that will be global as well. Some of the identity solutions we have, based on LiveRamp, TapAd. Some of those I think are, US focused. I'm not sure if they'll be available in LATAM. And I know like the Nielsen integration will just be in the US, but I think everything else should be globally available.
Okay. That's a really good segue actually into ID, because we've also had a bunch of questions around ID. So as Beeswax, not you particularly, Curt, but are you keen on any specific ID solution in particular? And how does that intersect, if at all, with what we have planned for identifiers?
Well, that's a pretty broad question. So speaking for Beeswax, I can say we don't have a preferred vendor. I mean, we want to support the vendors and the partners that our customers need us to, frankly, like that's our foremost position, which has translated to working with the big names that, you tend to hear about: LiveRamp, TapAd, Blue Kai. I mentioned New Star and Throttle as new DMPs we'll be working with. And yeah, I mean, maybe it's just enough to say that those are like the specific types of things we're working on.
Okay, and I think that's it. I think we've covered most of the topics. There's a fair amount of repetition in the questions. Maybe one actually that Audrey or Curt, you can take just to finish. Do we understand the costs that will be associated with Nielsen VAR measurement?
Brilliant.
Yeah, how's that going to be handled?
I'll take it. So we're not expecting, there will be a cost associated with it, just as there is for using Nielsen in any system. There is not expected to be any additional cost. Like Beeswax is not going to be taking a chunk. There's no CPM we're going to charge. Any fees are just Nielsen's straight charges, basically.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you very much, Audrey, Curt. Really appreciate all of the information that you've shared. Super exciting to hear what's going on. Thanks to everyone that tuned in, and thank you to all the questions. If we didn't get a chance to answer some of your questions specifically, don't worry. If you've asked publicly, we'll absolutely connect the details and provide some more information for you. As I said at the top of this, recording will be made available, so if anyone wasn't able to join that you're aware of, please do share and let them know. Otherwise, thanks very much, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.